Welcome back, everyone. If you're planning to move to the United States, already here on a visa, or waiting for your green card, the next 60 seconds could completely change your immigration timeline. The Trump administration just announced sweeping changes that affect nearly every category of immigration, and some of these updates take effect immediately. I'm talking about H-1B processing changes, new green card priority systems, updated asylum policies, and USCIS fee structures that could cost you thousands more if you wait. Whether you're a student, skilled worker, or family member of a U.S. citizen, these changes will impact your journey to America. The landscape of U.S. immigration has shifted dramatically in the first weeks of 2026, and understanding these changes isn't just important. It's absolutely critical for anyone navigating the system right now. The United States Citizenship and Immigration Services has rolled out significant policy updates that touch everything from employment-based visas to family reunification programs, and the implications are far-reaching. Let's start with what's happening with H-1B visas, because this affects hundreds of thousands of skilled workers and the companies trying to hire them. The registration period for fiscal year 2027 H-1B visas is approaching fast, with USCIS expected to open the window in March 2026. But here's what's different this year. The agency has implemented stricter specialty occupation definitions, meaning your job role needs to clearly require a bachelor's degree or higher in a specific field. Generic business analyst or project coordinator roles are facing much higher scrutiny than ever before. The Trump administration has directed USCIS to take a harder look at employer-employee relationships, especially for consulting companies and third-party placement. If you're working at a client site rather than directly for your sponsoring employer, expect requests for evidence to be almost guaranteed. The H-1B lottery system itself remains in place, but processing times have actually improved slightly. Premium processing for H-1B petitions is now averaging around 10 to 12 business days, which is better than the 15 days we saw in late 2025. However, the approval rate has dropped. We're seeing denial rates climb to nearly 24% for initial H-1B petitions, up from about 15% just 2 years ago. The message is clear. Applications need to be airtight from the start. For those of you on F-1 student visas, the optional practical training program remains available, but there's increased scrutiny on STEMOPT extensions. Immigration officials are conducting more site visits to verify that students are actually working in their field of study and that employers are providing genuine training opportunities. If you're planning to use your OPT period, make sure your employer is prepared for potential verification visits and has proper documentation of your training plan. Moving to green cards, this is where things get really interesting. The employment-based green card backlog continues to be a major challenge, particularly for applicants from India and China. For Indian nationals in the EB2 category, the priority date has barely moved, currently sitting at September 2012. Yes, you heard that right. People who started their green card process nearly 14 years ago are just now getting their chance. The EB3 category for India is showing dates from January 2012. Chinese applicants face similar but slightly less severe backlogs. The rest of the world category is current for most employment-based preferences, which means if you're from countries other than India or China, your wait time could be measured in months rather than years. However, there's a significant development that could shake things up. There's been discussion in Congress about recapturing unused visa numbers from previous years. Hundreds of thousands of employment-based immigrant visas have gone unused over the past 2 decades due to administrative backlogs. If legislation passes to recapture these numbers, we could see a substantial jump in priority dates, potentially advancing some categories by several years. This is something to watch very carefully over the next few months. The family-based immigration system has also seen notable changes. Processing times for immediate relative petitions, those filed by U.S. citizens for spouses, parents, and unmarried children under 21, have actually improved. USCIS is processing I-130 petitions in approximately 11 to 14 months on average, down from the 18 to 24 months we saw during the pandemic years. However, family preference categories for siblings and married children of U.S. citizens continue to face multi-year waits, with some categories showing priority dates from 2002 for applicants from countries with high demand. One of the most controversial changes involves asylum and refugee policies. The administration has reinstated and expanded the Remain in Mexico policy for asylum seekers at the southern border. Additionally, asylum officers are now applying more stringent standards when conducting credible fear interviews. The approval rate for affirmative asylum applications has declined, and the immigration courts are facing even larger backlogs than before, with some cases scheduled for hearings in 2029 or beyond. For those already in the asylum process, this means longer waits and potentially more challenging interviews. Now let's talk about something that affects everyone: USCIS fees. The agency implemented new fee structures in January 2026, and some of these increases are substantial. The fee for naturalization, the N-400 application, has increased to $760, up from $725. The I-485 adjustment of status application now costs $1,340 for most applicants. Employment authorization documents have gone up to $550. These increases are justified by USCIS as necessary to maintain processing infrastructure and reduce backlogs, but they represent a real financial burden for many applicants and families. There is some good news on the processing front. USCIS has expanded its online filing capabilities. You can now file more forms electronically through your USCIS online account, which generally results in faster processing and easier tracking. The agency is also piloting a video interview program for certain adjustment of status applicants, which could reduce the need for in-person appointments at field offices in some cases. For those tracking their cases, the USCIS Case Status Online tool has been updated with more detailed information. You can now see more specific updates about where your case stands in the review process, though the system still doesn't provide the level of transparency many applicants would prefer. International students and exchange visitors should be aware that student and exchange visitor program regulations have been tightened. Schools must now report student enrollment status changes within 10 business days, and students who drop below full-time enrollment for any reason need to consult with their designated school official immediately to avoid falling out of status. Temporary protected status, which provides protection from deportation for nationals of certain countries facing armed conflict or natural disasters, has been reduced for several countries. The administration has announced that TPS for certain nations will not be renewed when current designations expire, potentially affecting hundreds of thousands of people who have built lives in the United States over many years. Looking ahead to what's coming in the next few months, we can expect continued emphasis on enforcement and security measures. Workplace immigration audits are increasing, with ICE conducting more I-9 inspections. Employers are facing steeper penalties for paperwork violations and knowing employment of unauthorized workers. If you're an employer sponsoring foreign workers, now is the time to audit your I-9 compliance. There's also ongoing discussion about potential legislation that could affect high-skilled immigration. Some lawmakers are proposing to eliminate per-country caps on employment-based green cards, which would dramatically help Indian and Chinese applicants, but potentially increase wait times for applicants from other countries. Other proposals include increasing the total number of employment-based visas available each year or creating new visa categories for entrepreneurs and startup founders. The key takeaway from all these changes is that the U.S. immigration system in 2026 requires more preparation, better documentation, and greater patience than ever before. If you're planning to apply for any immigration benefit, start gathering your documents now. Make sure every form is filled out completely and accurately. Hire a qualified immigration attorney if your case has any complexity. The cost of getting it wrong has never been higher, with denial rates up and processing times still lengthy for many categories. For those already in the United States on temporary visas, maintain meticulous records of your status compliance. Keep copies of all your immigration documents, entry and exit stamps, and employment authorization. Make sure you understand the terms of your visa and don't accidentally violate your status, because there's very little flexibility being granted for technical violations right now. So there you have it, your comprehensive update on U.S. immigration for January 2026. The system remains challenging, but with proper preparation and realistic expectations, navigating it is still absolutely possible. If this information helped you understand the current immigration landscape better, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel because immigration policies continue to evolve rapidly, and I'll be here to break down every significant change that affects your journey to the United States. Drop a comment below telling me which immigration category you're in and what questions you still have. I read every comment, and your questions help shape future content. Remember, knowledge is power when it comes to immigration. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay hopeful. Your American dream is still within reach. You just need to navigate these changes carefully. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.